If you've ever walked into a room and suddenly forgotten why you went there, or found yourself searching for a familiar word that feels just out of reach, you may have paused for a moment and wondered what that means. Is it just a normal part of getting older, or is it something more? That quiet question tends to surface in still moments, often early in the morning or late at night, when the house is calm and your thoughts have space to wander. If you've ever had that experience, it's important to know you're not alone, and you're not wrong for wondering. Alzheimer's disease is one of the most talked about health concerns as we age, and yet it's also one of the most misunderstood. Many people carry fear around the word itself, even before they understand what it truly means. Today, this conversation isn't about alarming statistics or worst-case scenarios. It's about clarity. It's about understanding what Alzheimer's is, what it isn't, what kinds of changes deserve attention, and how awareness can actually bring steadiness instead of fear. Alzheimer's disease affects how the brain processes and stores information over time. It involves changes in brain cells that gradually interfere with memory, thinking, and reasoning. But here's an important grounding point early on. Alzheimer's is not the same thing as normal aging. As the years go by, it's natural for recall to slow a little. Names might take longer to surface. You may walk into a room and lose your train of thought. Those moments can feel frustrating, but on their own, they don't signal disease. Alzheimer's is different because the changes begin to interfere with daily life, such as routines and familiar tasks, in a more consistent way. Many people worry that one small slip means everything is unraveling. And while that fear is understandable, it often doesn't reflect reality. Memory exists on a spectrum, and most changes people notice in their 50s, 60s, and beyond fall well within the range of normal aging. The goal of learning about Alzheimer's isn't to create worry. It's to help you recognize patterns, so you can feel more grounded and informed. Have you noticed yourself becoming more alert to your memory lately? Maybe paying closer attention than you used to? That kind of awareness is actually very human. It doesn't mean something is wrong. Often, it simply means you care about your health and your independence, and that awareness can be a strength rather than a burden. When Alzheimer's does begin to show itself, the early changes are often subtle. Someone might have difficulty remembering recently learned information, or find themselves repeating the same story without realizing it. Conversations that once felt easy may require more concentration, especially when there's a lot of information being exchanged at once. There may be moments of confusion about dates or timelines, or a sense that familiar tasks take more effort than they used to. And changes don't always show up only in memory. Some people experience shifts in mood, increased frustration, or a tendency to withdraw from activities they once enjoyed. Decision-making may feel harder. Judgment may seem slightly off in situations that were once straightforward. And this is where perspective matters. Memory slips happen with age, but patterns tell a different story. A single forgotten appointment isn't a cause for alarm, whereas repeated difficulty managing everyday responsibilities is worth paying attention to. Awareness doesn't mean panic. It means noticing with curiosity rather than with fear. At this point, many people ask themselves a quiet question: how would I even know if something crossed that line? That question deserves more than a quick answer. It deserves reassurance. Changes that develop slowly and steadily over time, especially when noticed by both the individual and those close to them, are the ones that merit a conversation. That conversation doesn't have to be dramatic or rushed. It can be calm, thoughtful, and empowering. As Alzheimer's progresses, it typically moves through stages, though no two people experience those stages in exactly the same way. In the earlier phase, changes are often mild and may be managed with reminders, notes, or support from loved ones. People may still live independently and remain engaged in their routines. Over time, challenges may become more noticeable. Communication can feel harder. Daily tasks may require more assistance. Emotions can shift more quickly, and patience may wear thin on both sides. Later on, support often becomes more comprehensive. Individuals may have difficulty recognizing familiar faces or navigating familiar environments. This progression can sound overwhelming when described all at once. But it's important to pause here. Alzheimer's does not erase a person's identity, dignity, or worth. Support evolves because needs evolve, and care remains centered on comfort, connection, and quality of life. If you find yourself wondering how these stages might unfold, it's natural to feel a mix of curiosity and concern. So take a breath here. Understanding progression isn't about predicting the future, it's about replacing uncertainty with perspective, so fear has less room to take hold. Knowing when to seek help is another place where calm guidance can make a difference. If memory or thinking changes begin to interfere with daily life, or if those changes seem to be getting worse rather than staying the same, that's a reasonable time to check in with a healthcare provider. Often this starts with a primary care doctor who can review medications, sleep patterns, nutrition, and overall health. Sometimes memory changes have causes that are treatable or reversible, such as vitamin deficiencies, medication side effects, or unmanaged stress. Involving family in these conversations can feel uncomfortable at first, but shared understanding often lightens the emotional load, and information gives you options. Early support allows for planning, adjustment, and peace of mind. It also doesn't take away independence, and in many cases, it helps preserve it longer. Have you ever thought about who you would talk to first if you had a concern about your memory? That question isn't meant to create pressure. It's meant to remind you that you don't have to navigate these thoughts alone. Even considering the answer can bring a sense of grounding, because support often begins with a single honest conversation. While there's no guaranteed way to prevent Alzheimer's, there are many ways to support brain health as you age. These steps don't promise immunity, and they shouldn't be framed as cures. They are about resilience and overall well-being. The brain responds to how we move, how we rest, how we connect, and how we nourish ourselves. Regular movement supports blood flow to the brain and helps maintain balance and coordination. Quality sleep allows the brain time to restore and clear waste products. Staying mentally engaged through learning, hobbies, or meaningful conversation keeps neural pathways active. Social connection reduces isolation and supports emotional health. Nutrition that supports heart health also supports brain health, because the brain relies on a steady, healthy blood supply. These ideas often appear in discussions about senior health tips, not because they're trendy, but because they're foundational. Small, consistent habits tend to matter more than dramatic changes. What you do most days carries more weight than what you do once in a while. What's one routine you already have that quietly supports your well-being, even if you don't always give it credit? Taking a moment to recognize that can shift the focus from what might be missing to what's already working. That perspective builds confidence and encourages continuity rather than pressure. Stress management also plays a role. Chronic stress affects memory and concentration, and learning to create moments of calm throughout the day can have a meaningful impact. This doesn't require elaborate practices. Sometimes it's as simple as stepping outside for fresh air, pausing with a warm drink, or allowing yourself a few minutes of quiet before the day fully begins. It's also worth remembering that brain health doesn't exist in isolation. It's intertwined with physical health, emotional well-being, and social connection. Supporting one area often supports the others. This integrated approach is part of what makes aging a dynamic process rather than a decline. As this conversation begins to come full circle, it's natural to reflect on how information lands emotionally. Learning about Alzheimer's can stir up a range of feelings, from relief to concern to motivation. All of those responses are valid. What matters is how you carry that information forward. Have you noticed how understanding something more clearly can sometimes soften fear, even when the topic is serious? That's one of the quiet benefits of education grounded in empathy. Knowledge doesn't have to be heavy. It can be steady and reassuring. Alzheimer's disease is a real condition that affects many families, but it is not a single moment or a sudden loss. It unfolds gradually, and along the way there are opportunities for support, connection, and care. Staying informed helps you recognize what's normal, what deserves attention, and where to turn if questions arise. And if today's conversation encouraged you to think a little differently about your own health, that's a meaningful step. Awareness isn't about waiting for something to go wrong. It's about staying engaged with your well-being and trusting yourself to notice changes with calm curiosity. Every day is another chance to care for the body that's carried you this far. Keep learning, keep moving, keep believing in your own strength, because aging isn't slowing down, it's leveling up. If today's message resonated, take a moment to subscribe, leave a thought in the comments, or share this video with someone who could use a little encouragement. Because together, we're proving that aging well isn't the exception, it's the standard.